Well, hello everyone, and welcome to RCSI Summer of 2025. We're here today as part of Classmates in Conversation. My name is Ferga Gleeson, and this is Suzanne Southerland, and we're classmates from 1995. So it's our 30-year reunion this summer, and we represent 2 of 18 nationalities that graduated that year. So Susie, as I also know her, in reality, everything really started actually in 1989.
In 1989.
So can you give me a little bit of an insight as to how or why a young lady from Trinidad picked Ireland as the next phase of her life?
So in Trinidad, a Royal College of Surgeons was considered a very prestigious college to attend. My uncle actually came to Trinity and he ended up studying medicine at Trinity. So I had ties. So I thought I would be going back to Trinidad. And when I went back, I would actually qualify from the Royal College of Surgeons, which was so well known. So I would be set. But that I didn't follow that path.
Okay. And what would have been the perception of Ireland and Trinidad at that time? I mean, was it sort of a place on the map? Was it somewhere in Europe? I mean, did people or families have any historical connections with Ireland?
No, the majority did not. As I said, my uncle did come here because he got a scholarship from Trinidad. So it was on the map, definitely. But to most of the locals, they had never heard of it. So you would have to say you're going to England.
Okay.
And then they would know, oh, it's a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Okay.
So we would be able to think, okay, that's where she's heading. So.
And then when you arrived in Ireland, I mean, obviously having you sort of new and sort of fresh off the boat, as they would say, I mean, how did you find places to live, people to connect with? Because you transitioned from, a hot tropical climate to Irish world and life and weather. And how did you manage that first year?
The Irish weather was a big adjustment. That for me probably, and my line in college was, I'm cold, because that was me. I was always that cold one because I was from the islands. But over the years, I definitely adjusted. That first year was tough. Accommodations, the college was very good. It was, we were very good. I stayed in residence. It was easy to adjust in that manner. And the Royal College of Surgeons being so international, it was an easy transition.
Okay.
And kudos to you and the Irish. You guys are just wonderful, fun-loving, welcoming people.
I mean, I think we do have a tradition of that, but I suppose really everyone being sort of like young, fresh out of, like, we'll say, second level education, starting a new life, third level education is very different. So, I mean, from my perspective, I was in an all girls school for secondary school. Okay. So to come to, a bigger form of education, international line of education, all sorts of people from different parts of the world. I mean, it really was an eclectic hot pot.
Yes.
So, very exciting times.
So was this the first exposure you had to the international ethnicities like that?
That on a bigger scale, I suppose. I mean, historically, prior to that, between maybe home life and international travel, things like that, we had, some exposure to things like that. This would have been obviously in the 80s when you think about it. Yeah. But this really was the launch pad into the bigger world, the greater opportunities, what lies ahead. So I suppose my question again for you would be, when you came that first year and then transitioning into sort of the academic world, do you have any highlights from the pre-med year or the early sort of preclinical years? Have you been able to give your brain sort of think back in time? Because it's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was all a great experience. And in our pre-med year, that for me, we had 30% of Malaysians. We had 30% of our class was really Middle Eastern. I had never been exposed to either one of the cultures. And then incorporating that in our academics, even in chemistry, and it was like, oh wow, we are all the same, just bringing our cultures in.
Yeah.
So it was a nice adjustment.
You remind me actually of something. Chemistry. Chemistry was the one topic that I did not do in secondary school. So I think there was only a handful. It might have been maybe 5 or 6 of us that first year who had never done chemistry. And I'm just remembering Professor Nolan, who would have been the professor of biochemistry, took us under his wing and really went above and beyond to basically give us grinds. And he just didn't want us to, pass, fail chemistry. He wanted us to excel. It was sort of a point of pride for him. So it's just now that you mention chemistry, I was deficit. I had 0 chemistry coming in.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Do you remember the chemistry labs?
Yes.
I was always one of the Linda Lau, myself, and we would always be trying to see, okay, let's make sure we're going to be one of the first to finish. And we wanted to prove that we could do this. But it was, good experience. Good experience.
I remember actually there was one class, and you could sort of have fun towards the end. And it was making, I don't know if you remember this bar called the Crunchie bar. It's like a honeycomb with chocolate, but you could actually make that. And I think we all had a bit of fun making that.
Oh gosh. Yes.
That's another little memory. But can you think of other thoughts? Because we had an opportunity this morning to walk around here, and you sort of, the O'Flanagan Theatre, Chain Theatre. Any other things that sort of jump out at you from that sort of preclinical time?
There's a lot of memories flooding back in these last 3 days.
Yeah.
It was, even just walking through those lecture halls, we all had our seating. I went back and sat in my seat.
Okay.
In that second row. And John was taking a picture because it was like, yep, it was me, Suling, Linda Lau, and then Ming. Andy Line was behind
you.
We all had our seats. It was all like, these were our assigned seats.
Yeah.
And you knew where you could turn around and find anyone.
Yeah. And that I think must have actually happened organically, because no one placed you in a certain order or alphabetical or a numerical order. I suppose we became creatures of habit. Any particular sort of subspecialty area? I mean, were you more of an anatomy person? Were you a physiology person? Or did you just like everything?
No, I did not like everything. I was more of anatomy. Anatomy definitely, I think was more of a passion. And I do think Professor Monkhouse,
stood out.
He did, rest in peace, his soul. But he was so dynamic. I think we were all partially afraid of him, but he was dynamic and he had a good heart, and I knew he had the passion for it. And I think it passed on to all of us.
Yeah. No, I think anatomy is the one that stands out for most people. Just that card signing and sort of the Friday stress and the characters. And I mean, big giants in their field, as you say, Stanley Monkhouse, I think it was Clive Lee, Sean Hansen. Characters make the memories.
Right.
And then I suppose moving on, because we probably were in completely parallel universes then when it came to the more clinical years and different assignments in different places at different times.
Yes. And that for us, because then we lost contact, because you would be, in Blanchardstown and I would have been in Drogheda. I think that's where we did lose, because we would lose a lot of our classes. We went into our 6-week rotation.
Absolutely.
But each one had amazing memories.
Yeah. And I think jogging back as well, when people now meet up, it's a text, it's a WhatsApp, it's a whatever. I mean, we had none of that. No. I mean, I think there were no smartphones, no laptops for notes.
No.
Like nothing like that.
So when we didn't see each other, we didn't see each other for 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and at what period of time then did you, I suppose, through that cycle, sort of say, was PEDS on your agenda at that time, or did PEDS as your interest come later?
So it went, but when I went through all the rotations, I could mark off the ones I knew I wouldn't do. Psychiatry was major on that. There was no way. But then I did OBGYN and then went into peds, and that was my two top choices.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, these were the two that I enjoyed the most, and I think I can see myself in the future.
Okay.
And then as time went on, and as we got older, we had to realize, well, what I wanted in life. And OBGYN, I think, was more demanding than I think I wanted to give myself and put myself in. And that's when I decided, you know what, peds, and I just love children. I had the passion of that.
Okay.
And so I kind of went down that path.
Okay.
What about you? How did you know?
Well, so I didn't know. I wanted to keep my options open when it came to internship, because I loved the concept. I love neurology and actually neuroanatomy when you were talking about things, but I also wanted to be in a position to do something with my hands from a dexterity perspective.
Okay.
So it was more in intern year, which I did in Blanchardstown. I had a great 6 months doing surgery, as in the rotation, but I knew my heart and soul that would not be the direction.
Okay.
So the goal really at that time was to identify, I suppose we called it SHO years at that time, whereas for you it's probably an internal medicine residency, something like that. So I ideally wanted to try and find something that would incorporate sort of a subspecialty with a little bit of hand dexterity and neurology that would sort of help me to make a decision. So I was lucky that I got a 2-year SHO scheme in Beaumont. So I was able to do neurology and gastroenterology there to sort of help me to make a decision what would be the next phase.
Right.
So if I did the equivalent of internal medicine in Ireland, what did you do at that point in time?
So I did pediatrics. I went straight off to internships. I did do an internship in Ireland because back in 1995, 96, you required an internship prior to coming over and doing a residency.
Okay.
So that has changed now, because now after medical school, you can go right back.
Okay.
But then we couldn't. So I did 6 months medicine, 6 months surgery in Drogheda.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there was no pediatrics, but there was a lot of GYN. And that also made me realize that, no, I think I really do want to actually head in the pediatric world. And I knew pediatric surgery was never going to be, surgery in general was not for me.
Okay.
Ever. But it was, hands-on, it was great, because I think my clinical skills, I was able to use them.
Okay.
Which I think we do stand out, because being in a small hospital like Drogheda, as the intern, you did it all.
Yeah.
So my hands-on skills, I think I was able to excel in, which I was able to take back with me to the Cleveland Clinic. And then I went straight into residency.
So residency in Cleveland Clinic would have taken what period of time?
3 years.
That's 3 years.
So you do an internship again, but in pediatrics.
Okay.
And then you do your second and third year.
Okay. And then, so with your experience in Cleveland, obviously being Ohio, and then you've ended up in Florida, what was that role? I mean, did you immediately move to Florida at that period of time?
Because my husband, he got a fellowship at the University of Florida to do his gastroenterology.
Okay.
So that's when we moved, and I worked for University of Florida as an associate professor there.
Okay.
So I had a clinic with residents. So that worked. That was a nice transition for me. But coming from the islands and being in Cleveland for 3 years and being in Ireland for 7 years, I needed to get some warmth back.
Okay.
It was tough. Cleveland winters were tough.
Yeah.
So now we wanted to get back to the Sunshine State, and it was a close, hop for me to get back to my family, who was all in Trinidad.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons. And it was easy enough for John to get back to his family.
Okay.
In Canada.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I think in parallel, I went down the field of gastroenterology. So the Irish system at that time was not formalized the way you have, internal medicine residencies in the US and formal fellowship programs in the US. But it just so happened when I was about to start that they sort of nationally created I suppose, the equivalent of fellowship programs in Ireland, whereby there was a dedicated path. So if somebody was to do endocrinology, there was a dedicated, 4 or 5 year path.
Okay.
So that also then happened for gastroenterology. So it was a mix in that you needed to do a year of internal medicine. This was all of the equivalent of the registrar years, or specialist registrar would have been the term that was used. So I did a year of rheumatology for my internal medicine. And that just so happened was the first year that biologics were introduced into Ireland. So it was actually very useful then when it sort of would springboard into gastroenterology for biologics. So it was a nice overlap. And then I spent a year in Galway.
Wow.
And that was very much, I would say, a hub for celiac disease. They were sort of celiac disease central in Ireland. So that was a very good experience. And I got to do my Masters of Medical Science when I was there. And then I springboarded then back to the Mater. And that's where I spent my sort of core GI training. And I did my MD there. And that's, I think, where sort of it gave me sort of, well, what's the next springboard?
Right.
What do you do next? Where do you go next? So actually then I moved to the States at that point in time, which I thought was for 1 year. This was a fellowship at Mayo Clinic for 1 year doing endoscopic ultrasound and ERCP.
Okay.
But rather than staying a year, I got offered a job, didn't want to stay because in some respects, if any of you know Midwest, which is so different to the Florida weather and climate, Minnesota, where Mayo is, it's the same sort of population of Ireland, actually. It's about 3 times the size, but it's a state of 10,000 lakes, lots of forest, and winters are long and super cold. Everything is underground. I mean, it's well catered for, but everything's underground. So I was reticent to stay on staff. I always thought it was for a year. It was like an amazing, amazing experience. Probably the best year of all of my postgraduate education. Like really phenomenal. So I had an opportunity then to stay for a second year. So I did a pancreas fellowship, which actually quite unusual. And I was sort of like the novelty Irish kid, Irish female. So it worked out well. And then I ended up staying on staff. So I spent the bones of 20 years there.
All in academia.
All academia world. Quite different, I think, to perhaps tracks, in other countries, jurisdictions. But Mayo has a philosophy, although it's academia. So part of your core world is obviously clinical care, but education, research, all very much integrated. And then you sort of, go through the various stages of life and academia and academic progression. So, I did well in that I was probably one of the earlier females actually to become full professor of medicine at a relatively early age. And then they sort of like springboard you into trying to do business administration and things like that. So there are all sorts of different things within that academic world.
Right.
But so I suppose rather than talking about me, but going back to you, I'm just curious from a PEDS perspective, and you mentioned that, you're in the University of Florida, but you're currently now in independent private practice.
I'm in private practice.
What helped you or guided you to make that jump?
Well, in Sarasota, we don't really have any universities based in Sarasota. I still am involved, but now I jumped ship. And in Florida, we have 2 big universities, University of Florida, and we have our rival, Florida State.
Okay.
So now I jumped ship, and now I actually, I do teach for Florida State. I'm an associate professor for them, so I do have students with them, but they're based in Tallahassee.
Okay.
So we don't have a university there in Sarasota. So most pediatricians are all private. We go off into private practice. So I did open my own practice 18 years ago. So I worked for other people until that time when we transitioned. And then I thought, I'm ready to make that plunge.
And where did you learn along the way, develop the business acumen to do that?
So that only came with trial and error. And that was my weakest point. When they say that weakest link, that's the weakest point for me. And it was hard having to learn that and still practice medicine, still do what we love. And just like you, I love practicing medicine. I love being a pediatrician. But the business aspect of it has always been challenging because it is, in the end, a business that I have to run. I have my staff to pay. I have supplies. So I have to be able to balance it. And I didn't learn that in any lecture hall.
Yeah.
I had to learn it from just trial and error and figuring it all out. And I have good staff that has helped guide me, and we have the accountant, I have all those people in place that said, oh no, Dr. S, you need to do this, or you need to look at this. Why was your expenses higher this month? And I go, okay, I need to figure this all out.
And I mean, did you learn that on the fly, or did you do like an online business course? Just on the fly, trial and error?
Yes.
And if you were to, obviously you mentioned in practice 18 years, so if you have sort of, what style of ped care did you deliver, shall I say 18 years ago as opposed to now? Because I can anticipate there are changes, but I just don't know what those changes are.
Well, there are two types of changes. One was just changes of me following what the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends. This is how you do it. There's just black and white. And over experience, after you have kids of your own, you realize that kids are not black and white. It's not just in a textbook. So now I'm a little bit more empathetic as I went along, because now I have to make parents feel comfortable, and this is what we're going to try. Let's work on it. And the next time you come in, it's a lot more hand-holding, let's say. So I do practice differently in that. And of course, now in medicine, I hate to say in medicine, in the US, especially in pediatrics, we are fighting now immunization battle.
Okay.
So that is unfortunately a topic of conversation. I am a immunizing practice, and being a private practice, I can still hold that.
Okay.
So I don't accept patients who are not immunizing. And it works for some and not for others. But that is right now the hardest thing that we are dealing with as pediatricians in the US.
And is that, shall I say, vaccination just in general, the preschool era, the puberty age, just right across the board?
Right across the board.
And is that reticence from parents down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And before, we had herd immunity, but now because the number of unimmunized patients are higher and higher, we're losing that. And we're seeing these illnesses that should have been eradicated. And it just saddens me. When I was in Ireland, and in Drogheda, I took care of a patient who had SSBE, subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, secondary to measles.
Okay.
26 years old, brain dead. But people don't realize that this is real. This can happen. So now I don't want the MMR vaccines causing autism. No. And to go back and say, no, those studies actually were not real. They were falsified. It's an ongoing battle that we just have to deal with, which we shouldn't be dealing with in 2025.
Do you see light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, from sort of a national pediatric administration, organization, association, are they able to offer you guidelines, how to manage, how they predict, push policies in Washington?
But right now it's very, very difficult, and I cannot see that light at the end of the tunnel. And I
Okay.
wish I could say I could, but I can't.
Okay.
So it's a battle that I would keep fighting. And I think the majority of pediatricians are all, with me on this and would support me on this, because we keep fighting for our kids.
Mm.
These kids are my kids. And that's how I explain it. We still see pertussis. I've actually had patients with pertussis, but they hadn't started immunizing. It was a six-week-old. Went into the preschool to pick up the older sibling. Didn't realize that there were kids in there who were not immunized.
Okay.
So, and you hear it and you're like, oh, this is just textbook. I've read it in the textbook. You hear that whoop. I was walking out the door and that baby gave that whoop and I was like, oh my gosh, that's whooping cough. I'm like, has he been coughing like this before? Oh, yes. I'm like, did you not think that you should mention this to me? Pertussis.
Okay.
So it is real, and it's something that saddens me because I hold it very dear to my
Okay.
heart.
Yeah. No, I can see it's an emotional part.
Yes.
You're very emotionally entangled with your job.
Yes.
It's part of you. It's your
It
DNA.
is, because these are my kids.
Yeah.
These patients of my practice are I wouldn't do anything with any of these kids that I wouldn't do to my own. So it really does. And I have the ones that have been with me for a long time now. They trust me enough and they said, Dr. Sullivan, what would you do if this was your patient? If this was your child? And I said, well, these are my children and I did do it to my child, and your child is my child in this practice.
Okay.
So yes. And then one of the dads just last week was like, that's all I needed to hear. If you think we need it, we will go ahead and do it.
Okay.
So, the trust I do have that trust with my patients, but it's the younger ones now. It's the ones that I haven't built that trust
relationship.
Yet. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think over the years I would, but it's a battle. And it's a hard battle to fight.
And how do you think the next sort of 5-10 years within the peds world will change?
I think the next 3.5 years is going to be rough.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're not saying any more, but I'm hoping after that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, because then we can continue to progress forward and not take those 2 steps back that we are taking at the moment.
And can I ask you, is the realm of pediatrics embracing sort of that concept of artificial intelligence, artificial living? Where do you see that impacting you, as in, shall I say, practice, specialties?
So they've
things like
already started introducing that in our EMR. So, now, of course, like in the Mayo, everything is electronic medical records.
Yeah.
So even as a small private practice, we all have to have that. That is now part of it. And even in our notes, you can have AI generate notes for you,
Mm-hmm.
which I still, and maybe because we are old school, Ferga.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I am a little hesitant about that part. I try to embrace things as best I can.
Me too.
Be optimistic. I still have to have that little element of reticism. I do think, and maybe I overestimate the risk and underestimate the opportunity with this, but I'm cautious with that.
I am too. And I think it's just because we were a class of 1995.
Yeah.
It wasn't as easy for us and as natural for us as it is now with the students. And I'm sure you did that in the Mayo.
Yeah.
Anything, the students, oh, no problem, doctors, I've got this. Blah, blah, blah. They found it. Oh, okay.
No,
that would have taken me a
I
little
think we're
longer than
very
that.
much that sandwich group. So as you say, we'll say the current students or those who've recently graduated, they excel. I mean, it's clickety click click. We're okay, I'll try click click. But what I actually worry about, whether it's peds, adult medicine, I actually heard a statistic during the week, and it's in reference to the Irish population, and it was that 3 out of every 4 individuals over the age of 75 in this country have not had internet access in the last 3 months.
Really?
So if we're talking about all of this digital transformation, sensors, remote monitoring, electronic health record,
Right.
patient portals. How is that group, and the most vulnerable group really,
Right.
how are they going to manage?
Yeah. I don't know. Because
Because there is,
that
I
is the
suppose, like a
way of the world.
literacy that's associated with computers, technology, AI, that artificial living. And I just wonder, and in fact, so I came back to Ireland about a year ago from Mayo, so I'm now in private practice in Dublin. And that is one of the things that has stood out to me is that older person, 80 plus, and just how they navigate the system. It's very difficult for them
So do
because we're
you
all
not
trying to
have
go
that?
paperless.
Right. So do you have that in your practice?
Uh, I'll put it to you this way. We try to obtain an email address from every single person and try to electronically give them information, your appointment timelines, your
Right.
consent forms, your prescriptions. But there are still a significant number of people. I don't have an email address, or I have an email address, but I have to wait for my granddaughter to come at the weekend and she'll do it for me. And actually, I don't have a printer.
Oh my goodness.
Because I have incorporated, again, probably just a little bit of a Mayo background, a questionnaire, just to try and streamline the conversation when I meet
Right.
somebody for the first time, that if I have all this information in advance, then I don't have to waste that time and you focus on the person in front of you
Right.
and get ahead with the task. But many people will not fill out the questionnaire because I didn't know how to fill it out and I don't have a printer, actually, is probably number one.
Oh my goodness.
So I just worry about that older generation.
Right.
How do we deliver care in an environment whereby digital transformation's everywhere?
It is.
We've gone from our smart home, you tap your hand and the light comes on, or you talk to the TV and it will, go on, go off. But I mean, healthcare is now talking about sensors and remote monitoring, whether it's, your young child, say, for example, with insulin-dependent diabetes,
Mhm.
so remote monitoring for sugar or the ECG or sleep habits, things like that. How are we going to be able to roll that out?
I know.
Because one part of
It's
society
challenging.
is so advanced, if not super advanced, and then the other section of society I suppose it's this health equity component
Right.
or health accessibility. We're going to run into a problem, and I'm not quite sure we're prepared for that.
Yeah. I mean, my population is a little different because most of my parents at this point are all computer savvy, they're all IT. And that has its positives and negatives because yes, I do get them communicating with me in the portal all day, anytime, weekends.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not attached to my computer 24/7. But even here on being here for the reunion, people are messaging me in the portal.
Yeah.
Dr. S, I need this refill. Can you do? Like, there's no separation.
Out of curiosity, when somebody signs up for your patient portal in your practice, do you have one of these documents that's sort of like a rules of engagement type of situation?
Yes, I do,
But it's violated. Okay.
no one.
Okay.
I don't think they read it. I
Okay.
think they
True.
sign it, but no one reads it.
Yeah.
So that there's limits, and there should be limits, because I really don't think you should be messaging me in a portal for medical advice when I do have someone we are on call 24/7, and I don't look at the portal every day because I shouldn't have to. Yeah, I am on vacation. I can. I think I'm allowed a week vacation.
Yeah.
So I think that's where there's the boundaries. We've lost that.
So when you
Because of
talk
the
about,
accessibility.
actually, I suppose, vacation, there's this now, particularly I think post-pandemic, concept of, we'll say, physician wellness. And interestingly, just as I was outside walking into the building earlier today, I saw, I think it was hashtag RCSI wellness and hashtag RCSI togetherness. So within, we'll say, pediatrics, private care, the academic care, has that sort of trickled down to physician wellness, burnout prevention, make sure you go on your holidays, your digital detox, all of those things?
No, not at all.
No.
Not in my age group, in our age group. yes, for the new graduates.
Right.
So definitely for the new graduates, they're very much into their limitations, and they are. And I think we were probably the last of the generation, and I don't know, I may be wrong, so don't hold me to this, but the new graduates now, lunch hour is my lunch hour. I do not do chatting in lunch hour. I'm finished at 5 o'clock. I will not do chatting after hours.
Yeah.
My husband and I, we are chatting, and I know you would have been exactly the same. We're chatting on the weekends. We're chatting in the evening. No, that's not how it's done anymore.
Yeah. No, I think there has been a huge culture shift in education. I think in general, the delivery of medicine in general, people's expectations, including patients' expectations too. So it'll be just, how will this all peter out? Because once AI comes along and robotics enter our world and things become automated, it's inevitable. People are going to become de-skilled in different areas.
Right.
So I think just have to have that big picture. Where can we moderate and be a little bit more flexible?
I'm quite saddened by that, though, because I do think there's something to say about being face-to-face and doing the hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of things are going to get missed with AI.
Yes.
And I've seen it over and over again in the years. I mean, we've been practicing a long time. Mm-hmm. And there are things that would be missed if AI made that diagnosis.
Yeah.
They didn't listen to the chest. They didn't put the hand on the abdomen. You may have come, and that's happened to me. Yeah, so they came in for a nosebleed. And then I listened to the chest. I'm like, you have crackles in that right lower base. No, we're going for chest x-ray. Yeah, that's not what they came in for. But if I didn't do an exam, we would have missed it. Yeah, I would have missed it.
Yep.
So I do think that there are going to be some pros and cons to that.
And then I suppose looking into the future and the future of pediatrics, where do you see areas developing or areas that need greater governance?
I think definitely it's going to continue to progress with this. Yeah, I think that's going to be where it's going to be developing, honestly. We will be doing a lot more televisits where right now I'm very limited. I do rashes, I do conjunctivitis, things that I can see on camera.
Yeah.
But they will be, they will be able to accommodate for ears, chest. So I do think we're going to be progressing with that, where people probably are not going to have to go into offices anymore. And hopefully, as I said, I think things will continue to turn around. Well, I think things will start, hopefully, turn around with this whole immunizations, because I don't think there's any way of getting around it. But pediatrics will continue to grow, I hope.
And then where would you see sort of yourself in, we'll say, like the 10-year window? Are you looking at the big retirement world?
I think, yes.
A sharp cutoff, or sort of a slow decline and make it more comfortable to exit?
Right now, I've already started making that change. So I have cut down. I work 2.5 days. I have someone else who works for me. And in the US, we use a lot of mid-levels. So I have a mid-level. I have a physician's assistant who works for me. And that's where, as we are getting older, I'm trying to make that balance in life. So I have my practice, and then I have my hobby, which I think we all know now is Zumba. So that I do enjoy that a lot. So much so that I became an instructor, and I do that on the side. So that it's a balance.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be, maybe in 5 years, I think within the next 5 years, I would probably make a complete cutoff. Maybe I will just do a little bit more academia. Maybe do some lectures for FSU based out of Sarasota and help with that. Because I can't see myself turning it off completely. mentally, I'm not ready for that.
Not just yet. Not just yet.
What about
Yeah.
you?
I think we'll sort of, I'm guessing now, rather than having a firm plan, but just slowly take it down. Because I've really, in the last year, I've made that big transition from the academic medicine world in a different country. I'm now back in Ireland, different country, private style healthcare delivery, very different. So I think that's going to take me a bit of time, obviously to get used to that and to deliver that. And then, slowly change things around. I think, we've seen a number of our colleagues, friends, go through challenging times, whether it's related to health, lots of things. So I think even just from our conversations over the last day or two, I think it's been a big time when an awful lot of people are actually now beginning to self-reflect.
Right.
Even last night, somebody, mentioned, I think I'm just going to give myself another 5 years and then just call it quits.
Right.
So I think people are looking ahead to the future a little bit more, and they want to be able to enjoy their retirement as opposed to being unwell, ill during their retirement. Just like maximize things out as best they can.
So would you say coming from the US to here has been slow? It's been slower in the pace for medicine?
It's actually, in all honesty, it's a different mix. The patient case mix is different.
Okay.
The behind the scenes is different in that I would have been very used to the electronic health record, the patient portal. Everything is interconnected: pathology, laboratory, procedure reports, communicating with other care members and teams. It's much more fragmented now. So there's an awful lot more of the administrative burden and paperwork. So just all of those things takes a little bit of extra time to get used to, just to find your comfort zone.
Right.
But we'll get there. It was all for good reasons,
Right.
and good move. But I must say, I absolutely loved my time in the US. And I think so many of surgeons' graduates now, even just seeing the Instagram posts and things like that they post, it's like, hi, I'm so-and-so, so-and-so, and they're going to such a place in Canada or such a place in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
There's, a huge connection, and I think there always will be. And that's just the whole global connectivity that surgeons has. So if we were to sort of, shall I say, round up, and if you were to give words of wisdom from a 30-year graduate from surgeons to somebody who might be going through their final med year now, what sort of advice would you suggest?
For your final med, I say work hard, make an impression, and your transition to the US, if this is where you want to be in North America, should be easy, because College of Surgeons is still very well recognized. So they think that when you apply to, and they are all those matches that you can get into. When you're applying from the Royal College of Surgeons, I think we graduate with such a strong degree that you can easily transition over to the North American system.
And any other words of advice, like big picture life words of advice?
Live life to the fullest. My time at RCSI is a time I cherished.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here I am, small, female from Trinidad. I was involved from the get-go, from pre-med on. I was class rep, went on, became first female student union president.
Expand upon that. Tell me about that.
So it was, who would have thought? And that in itself, in 1994, we were in a male-dominated
That's a whole other can of worms.
Yes, but every meeting, I was the only female speaking out on behalf of the students. So I made a name, and who would have thought? Some people probably never even heard where Trinidad was. But you can get involved. make it your best.
Yeah.
And I was heard. I had this support from so many professors, attendings that supported me. And we made changes. We made changes back in 1994. So it was just, you can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Well, I think actually that's a very good, shall I say, soundbite for the end of this, our classmates in conversation. So again, we're the 30-year graduates from 1995. So for any of you out there who are going through med school at the moment, I think, as Susie said, just think big. There are lots of opportunities, wonderful times for networking, and you'll make just tremendous friends and lifelong connections. So I'm delighted to have seen you this weekend.
Me too.
Because it's been 30 years since I've seen this lady. So I'm delighted.
Yeah.
So thanks to everybody.
Thank you.